Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm KSN Storm Track 3 Chief Meteorologist Lisa Teachman, and it's Sunday evening. We are getting ready for Sunday Night Football on KSN, and the KSN crew, myself, along with Jeff and Julia and Asia, will be on after the game tonight. Big game, the Ravens taking on the Buffalo Bills, and we have extra staffing here tonight. I am joined by meteorologist Jack Maney, who is in the Storm Track 3 Weather Center with me tonight. And we are also live on Facebook, so if you have any weather questions, please feel free to post them in the comment section. We will try to get to some of those and answer some of those. So how you been, Jack?
Oh, been doing great. This last few weeks, we've had quite a few vacations, so there's been a lot of fill-in time. Like I know I spent a couple of weeks on the morning show recently, so...
And you've done a great job.
Yeah, but I tell you what, I am glad that I'm getting to see those sunsets again after a couple of weeks of being a little more nocturnal.
And it's also great to have you on the evening shift, too. Lucy is off tonight, if you guys are wondering. She is taking a little bit of time off. This time of year, you get done with severe weather season, and the way it typically goes is we don't take vacations during severe weather season, but then over the summer, we're a little bit freer, although this summer has definitely been something else.
Hasn't ever really quieted down. It hasn't felt like we've had a few vacations over the last few weeks, and we're still dealing with severe weather.
Severe weather. And speaking of which, on September 3rd, this past week, this was Wednesday, right? This was
Thursday,
Wednesday.
I believe.
No,
Wasn't it?
It was Wednesday. It was
Okay,
Wednesday.
I'll take your word.
Yeah, because the first was on Monday. All these days are running together,
Yeah.
aren't they? But this was one of the thunderstorms, one of the severe thunderstorms that came through this week in the Wichita area. And we had two thunderstorms that were producing baseball-sized hail. The thunderstorms began earlier in the day. They started to erupt closer to the Salina area, and they were tracking to the south-southeast. And these thunderstorms continued to produce the large gorilla-sized hail once they moved into Sedgwick County. And then we had the secondary storm that did the same thing. But the first hail core that came through Park City over toward Valley Center, easily getting some large hail. And then the second one, more of West Wichita.
Yeah, it was basically that first storm that came through basically got everybody east of I-135, and then the second storm was like, oh, hey, you missed a spot, and came in and
let's do this all over again.
Everyone on the west side was then hit with the hail. But yeah, this was the view from the Sedgwick County Zoo from that first storm that came through and brought the hail on the east sides of town. And I know a lot of folks had incredible views of this storm as it came through Wichita, and really just the storm really started wrapping itself up and really putting on quite a show right as it came into town.
It really did. When you're looking at this picture here, and Maney, you love to storm chase with us quite a bit. When you're looking at this picture here, you can definitely see in the middle levels of the storm, you have some pretty good rotation, but we really struggled toward the bottom of this storm in order for us to get a tornado, because I know a lot of people were saying, oh, we're going to get a tornado out of this. We're going to get a tornado out of this. But this was a classic hailer.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at this storm, you see how it's got the nice striated, smooth, like sculpted look as you get a little higher up in the cloud base. But underneath the lowest hanging clouds there, those are pretty ragged. They're not really all that well congealed together. So it was just kind of telling me that like a lot of that rotation was a little higher up in the storm. And yeah, it was never really looking like there was an imminent threat of a tornado, even though, yeah, on that radar presentation, you looked at the reflectivities, you could just see that thing had, it was wrapped up beautiful radar presentation.
Oh yeah, I wish
storm came in.
Did you capture a radar image of it that evening?
I
wish
not.
I would have.
Yeah, I mean, I can go back into archive mode. I got got the Tier 2 radar scope subscription still, but yeah.
Look at you go.
a little fancy, but yeah, it's actually a holdover from back whenever I used to work for Radar Scope. Actually, back when I was in college. But yeah, we just had such an incredible view of that storm as it came in. Second one that came in wasn't quite as pretty. It was kind of riding the coattails of that first storm, but my goodness, that was it was nice only having to drive a couple of miles to go and chase this storm down. Like, just wasn't expecting to do too much. It was my day off. I was recovering from that 2-week stretch.
Right, and I was on vacation this day.
So, and then all of a sudden, then it's like, oh, this storm is it's doing something. So got to get out there and get a picture of it. Send the pictures in. help the folks out with that were in the studio doing the coverage that night.
Yeah, Lucy did a wonderful, wonderful job. And of course, also meteorologist Jack Boston was out. He was trying to avoid the hail in one of his vehicles, and he was trying to get positioned. And he also sent in some incredible shots from the Hayesville area. But yeah, this was what you would call a mothership kind of a look.
Yeah, absolutely. That meets the definition of a mothership. Absolutely to a T.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you have any weather questions for us, we have about 26 people that have joined us live here on Facebook. This is also going over to our digital CTV station as well. So this happened earlier this week where it seems like we just don't get a break from severe weather. We also have a chance for some stronger thunderstorms in some parts of Kansas tonight, other parts tomorrow. Both labeled as a marginal risk. And everybody wonders, what is a marginal risk? What's a slight risk? All that kind of thing. And basically, whenever I say that there's a marginal risk, I'm saying that there's going to be 1 or 2 thunderstorms. You're not going to have a whole lot that will be capable of reaching severe storm thresholds. But this evening, if we look back this week, this is when we had a slight risk, which was for Wichita. And that means you're going to have a few more thunderstorms that are going to be capable of becoming severe. Taking a look at some of our other weather graphics here. This has basically been what we call false fall. And a lot of people are wondering, has fall started earlier? Is this going to be an indication of what wintertime is going to be like? And that's not necessarily true. We have to wait once we get closer to our winter storm season, how the weather patterns are shaking out. Is it going to be more El Nino? Is it going to be La Nina? Or is it going to be neutral? So when you have one of those larger scale that happens across the globe, that can give us a pretty good indication of what our winters are going to be. But what we're calling this right now is false fall, which means temperatures are going to start to go warmer again, but the temperature is below average. I mean, it's been feeling fabulous, but this is not the way that we typically end August and begin September.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been remarkably cool. I'd call it probably the best ending to August I've ever seen in my lifetime. It's been...
It might be the only time that you're experiencing that in your lifetime, growing up around here. And of course, you were growing up in Oklahoma.
It's even hotter down in there.
It is, but it hasn't been that much because even Oklahoma has been trending below average too.
Yeah, we've had plenty of rainfall throughout the summer months, and then we got into this pattern with a big old area of low pressure farther off to the east. It's just kept the cold fronts coming, and I've been enjoying it. I've been getting outside, doing some running and some biking, and just trying to stay active. And I don't have to go inside the gym and retreat to the air conditioning to do that without sweating myself to death. So it's been fantastic for, I think just about everybody's been enjoying it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's been complaining unless you absolutely love those summertime temperatures. And
which you know what? You do you.
Yeah, you do you.
For those of you out
you
there,
do you.
I will say that it is nice. A warm summer evening is pretty great, but if you're enjoying 100-degree temperatures in the afternoon, then I have some questions for you.
Go to the desert Southwest. Go to the desert Southwest, right? Well, we call this false fall because, as I said, this week temperatures are going to be going back up. We're expecting highs to return to the 80s. There may be even some parts of western Kansas later this week that will get to around 90 degrees. Not expecting the triple digits, but more the 80s into the lower 90s. Which is a far cry from what we've been experiencing lately.
Yeah, absolutely. And even then, like low 90s, that's pretty typical for this time of the year. It's not extreme or exceptional heat. It's just kind of getting back to about business as usual, which, you know what, this time of the year, once we're getting into the late summer months, it gets to be, I would call it a little bit more manageably hot.
It is. And so our coolest high on August 26th, coolest high. 68 degrees. Our coolest August 25th through the September 5th ever in Wichita history. Recorded Wichita history goes back to 1888. So that's why I'm saying this might be something that we might not necessarily experience again in our lifetime. And we've also had a plentiful amount of rainfall, 2.39 inches of rainfall since August 23rd. Can you believe that? It's absolutely great. And more places are going to pick up a little bit more rainfall tonight. We have this deeper moisture that's been flowing in from the south-southeast. We have a higher moisture content in western Kansas then eastern Kansas. And there's a reason for that.
Kind of a bit of a flip-flop
It
from what
is.
you'd usually expect, right?
You normally expect to have the deeper moisture in eastern Kansas. You go over toward the Flint Hills where things are a lot greener. You don't expect that in the higher terrain of western Kansas. But wind flow, of course, is greatly important. But also the different weather features that are lined up all across the nation, all across the globe. We've had this huge high pressure system to the east of us, and that's what's been bringing us the cooler temperatures and also the drier conditions, at least the farther east that you go. But different setup in western Kansas right now.
Yeah, and it's been kind of coming together with that low pressure that's you see developing in western Kansas. That's kind of acting. It's kind of acting like it's like a slurping the moisture up from the south, like through a straw, basically.
Right.
Whenever you have low pressure forming around that area of the west, we often see a pretty big increase in south winds, and those south winds come off the Gulf, and that brings plenty of moisture in. So it's interesting that it's a pretty narrow plume of moisture in western Kansas right now. It kind of ends east of Interstate 135. The dew points in western Kansas right now in the 60s. That's once you cross over the dew point over about 60, that's when you can really start to notice that humidity in the air. Just a little humid. It's not bad, of course, not sweltering or anything, but farther east, Wichita, we really not feeling any humidity at all. We're
55, fabulous.
Absolutely. That's about as good as it gets, because also it's dry enough that it's not feeling humid, but it's not so dry that it's like chapping your lips or anything like that. So it's about perfectly where you would want it to be.
Dew point is the point at which dew forms. So if you cool the temperature down to the dew point, you're going to get precipitation. You're going to get fog formation during the overnights. And also, you typically get dew.
Yeah, it's basically the best analogy I've ever heard for it is it's the temperature your drink would have to be for the glass to start sweating.
There you go. Keep that in mind. Lisa comments on Facebook, not me, Lisa, but Lisa Langley says, no 100s and even the 90s are too hot. And this time of year, 90s are getting a little too hot.
That is probably I would call it the coldest of cold takes, because I feel like that's pretty universal.
All right, now we're
fully on board with it.
Now we're looking at a visible satellite image. You're starting to see the sun setting in the western sky. That's why we're starting to drop out of some data farther to the east, northeast. But look at what's going on to the west. This is the activity that we're beginning to watch. Sure, we've had a few attempts at some showers in western Kansas, but it's basically been in parts of southeastern Colorado where these new thunderstorms are beginning to form. And the clouds are going to continue to thicken from the west to the east. We've seen an uptick in some of the cloud cover in central Kansas. It's been relatively thin. And even in western Kansas, while we started off with clouds earlier today, we've broken out into a little bit more sunshine, which of course has helped to enhance the atmosphere and help to heat things up. And even our temperatures right now, you can see the difference from 76 in Wichita to 82 in Elkhart and 80 degrees in Liberal. So definitely a lot warmer to the southwest, but also McCook getting up to around 80 degrees as well. Temperatures tonight, 50s and 60s. Who else has been loving this, giving the AC a little bit of a break, especially during the overnights?
Yeah, my house actually cooling down at night, and it's not coming with the power bill. I love it. I hope that's my favorite thing about the fall is you're able to let the utility bills go down. Like this is it's a little cheaper to live this time of the year.
Right, it sure is. 57 tonight in Goodland, winds at about 10 to 20 miles per hour in western Kansas. And even though you see an icon for thunderstorms across most of western Kansas, it's probably only going to be maybe a few clusters of thunderstorms as this disturbance continues to track to the east. And this disturbance is going to give more places across central Kansas from Wichita to Hutchinson, the fairgrounds tomorrow morning, and also tomorrow afternoon look like they could be a little bit damp because of some scattered showers and also thunderstorms. And then any lingering moisture Tuesday morning, that looks like it's going to be across the Flint Hills, so it could be close to I-135, but you have a much greater chance once you get over toward Emporia, Junction City, the Manhattan area, and then another disturbance will develop first to the west and then track to the east going into Wednesday, which could give Wichita and also the folks at the fairgrounds a little bit more rainfall. As for tonight, marginal risk. This means one or two thunderstorms could become severe. We have one severe thunderstorm warning in southeastern Colorado. That's close to the Lamar, Colorado area, and that's been primarily for the hail concerns. So Garden City, Liberal, Elkhart tonight, Goodland, Colby, these areas are all fair game for a thunderstorm that could produce hail up to the size of ping pong balls and maybe be even some 60, 65 mile per hour wind gusts.
Yeah, and those, again, with a marginal risk, usually we're talking about maybe 1 or 2 storms that are capable of producing that. Most folks are going to have very few concerns for tonight. Just don't be surprised if one storm does wind up running your way because, they could be a little strong if they do.
Could be, and you can see where the thunderstorms are lining up near the Kansas-Colorado state line, points to the west. And as we showed you moments ago, talking about the dew point, talking about that wind flow coming in from more of that southeasterly direction, you see how you're getting some stronger winds that are flowing here into western Kansas. So that's just siphoning the moisture in, and it'll produce a few of these clusters of thunderstorms. They'll continue to weaken, but this disturbance is still going to be alive and well tomorrow morning, only farther to the east. 5:30 in the morning, western Kansas. Looks like it's all going to be from west central into central Kansas. Salina over toward Great Bend could have some rainy rumbles tomorrow morning, and then late tomorrow morning into the afternoon, Wichita, Hutchinson picking up some of this rainfall. This will track to the southeast, but tomorrow evening, when we were looking at the data earlier today, you break out into sunshine in southwest Kansas. The atmosphere becomes a little bit riper to the southwest of Wichita. These thunderstorms, they could be some beefy supercells producing some larger hail.
Yeah, exactly. And really, I would not be surprised if it played out kind of similarly to the way we had it this past week, just a little bit more displaced to the southwest.
Right.
So, if you were watching, those of you folks in southwest Kansas that were watching the hail hit Wichita a few days ago, then we could have storms kind of a similar caliber in the area, especially farther to the southwest tomorrow.
That'll be for tomorrow evening. Then Monday night into Tuesday morning, this is going to be the development that's going to be over the Flint Hills region, along to the east of I-135, higher focus over toward Emporia. And then tomorrow evening, like we were talking about, this is going to be primarily southeast of Wichita. They may try to etch this back a little bit on the far northwest side. This may be a bit overdrawn. I definitely like the higher focus southwest of Wichita near the Kansas-Oklahoma state line.
Yeah, and it's really going to come down a lot of it to where those storms in the morning form because they're going to work the atmosphere over, and it depends how extensive they are, how far south they do move, because some of these models, of course, a model is always an approximation. It's never an exact truth of exactly what's going to happen. So as these storms evolve, they can produce a cold pool that would sap the atmosphere of moisture, and depends on how far south those go. They do tend to like to outrun where the model puts them a little bit. So, we'll just have to watch and see where that winds up going, but the farther south and west that goes, the more it pushes it down into Oklahoma, and we'll see how far south and west that risk is drawn for tomorrow whenever they reassess.
It's interesting you mentioned the cold pool because I have seen thunderstorms that have developed. You get a complex of thunderstorms up in Kansas City, northern Missouri, and it just sends out this outflow boundary. You just have this cooler air, this more stable air that starts to drop back to the west, southwest, and it may kill the opportunities for thunderstorms. So this is also the type of environment that we're in because weather models, sometimes they will struggle when it comes to convection. And when we say convection, we're talking about showers, we're talking about thunderstorms. Convection is just that inside baseball term that we meteorologists will use.
Air moving up and down.
Air moving up and down. That's right. Convection. Think of your convection oven. Think of your microwave kind of a thing, but only happening on a much grander scale, which is happening in the atmosphere that we are all surrounded by. I have seen that happen when it comes to our chances for thunderstorms. You know, if we have, I think back to what was at the high risk that we had last year, the year before, and it was parts of southern Kansas down toward Oklahoma. And the thunderstorms started to develop in Oklahoma first. But because it started to send out the cirrus shield, or basically the clouds higher up, that helped to stabilize our atmosphere, and our high risk was not realized. And sometimes that will happen in the atmosphere because we as meteorologists, we are trying to forecast the future based out of chaos.
Yep. And it's these things that can play out. It's little things that we we genuinely just don't have the density of the weather instruments, like our networks that we use to sense things on the ground
Right.
across like the few and far in between weather balloon launch sites that we have.
And those have actually dropped because of a lot of stuff that's happened in the government. And we're not going to go into that here on this podcast.
A lot of political things.
But there have been a reduction in balloon launches.
Yep.
And that information is so critical because it gets fed into the computer models that we have
Yep.
and then the future models that we use in order to create a forecast with.
Yeah, exactly. You take a few surface sites off, a couple airports maybe take their ASOS sensors offline, and that's not going to cause a major impact. But you take a couple balloon launch sites out, those are a lot fewer and farther in between. So that's a much larger gap that you have in coverage and just your ability to see what's happening. And a lot of these things that we're looking for are things like subtle differences that would be in between those launch sites. So of course it's all an approximation game, and we do our best to try to get the most accurate picture of what the atmosphere is going to be. But there's always uncertainty. There's always things that we don't have the ability to see.
That's absolutely right. Now, I am going to flip something that you said, because something that you said is really important. When we're talking about weather models, the weather balloons feed into those. But you mentioned ASOS, and if you were to take one or two of those offline, where does that hurt us? It hurts us with climatological data, though.
It does.
Because if we're showing you the entire map of Kansas, and if you are wondering why the temperature is missing from Salina, it is missing from Wichita, then chances are there is a problem with that recording station. And if we don't get that data back, then that's working as a disservice to us when it comes to climatological data going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no such thing as too much data. The largest data set in the world is weather data, and it's constantly growing and growing. Every single day we're getting millions and millions of observations and measurements added to this gigantic database. What do you remember the name of the actual name of the database?
I'm not.
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah,
off of
it escapes me.
Yeah, just look it up. Largest data set in the world, and it'll tell you right there off of Google. But it's just constantly growing because you need all of that data to be able to paint an accurate picture of what's happening. But it's incredible how much data we have and how much we would need to even increase our accuracy, even just a little bit. Right.
And this is why here in Kansas and across the whole entire nation, CoCRAs is so important, where you can have your own recording, your own station at your house that you can record this information on and upload it to this database. There's ASOS. It's our Kansas Mesonet, which the Kansas Mesonet has grown tremendously, but there are still so many counties across the state that do not have a recording station. It's not like the Oklahoma Mesonet, because the Oklahoma Mesonet has been going for quite some time, and it is world class. It is world class, and it is in depth. Not a knock on the Kansas Mesonet at all. It's just the Oklahoma Mesonet's been going a lot longer than the Kansas Mesonet is, and we have some fine folks that are working quite a bit in order to get the Kansas Mesonet to compete on a playing field similar to the Oklahoma Mesonet.
Yeah, absolutely. And like keeping and talking about like weather data and having these observing sites, really it's kind of interesting how they tend to follow where people are located, but
yes.
But that's actually like with weather, weather doesn't care whether there's people living somewhere or not.
It's always going to happen.
Yeah, of course. Like you need those sensor stations, those weather observing sites in the most completely rural areas, places where we don't have anybody living at all, just as much as you would need them in the middle of big cities.
Right. We have a few other folks that have been joining us on our Facebook page. Doug saying, "Ooh, I didn't know you had a podcast now too." Yes, we've had a podcast. We've had a couple of episodes so far. You can check out some of the previous episodes. I interview Jack Maney, and I also interview Lucy Dahl. Need to interview Boston. Need to interview Ronell. So that way you guys can get to know them a little bit more. But you can find those on YouTube. And, you can also search KSN's webpage, and we also have that information. But this is our first time of actually going live on Facebook while we were recording this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a lot more fun to have that live element, to have the interaction. Folks can ask us questions and just kind of chime in and enjoy it, like follow along with us.
Yeah, in case there's just one of those weather questions, or there's a question that you have for me or for Maney, feel free to type it into the chat right here on Facebook, and we would love to answer those for you. Lisa Langley mentions, thanks for explaining why the weather is missing for some areas. A lot of people think that we're the ones responsible for that. Oh, well, you guys just don't like Garden City because the temperature is missing. When are you going to get Garden City back? And then, of course, we have to go to the National Weather Service, because those are the fine folks that handle that, and say, or the FAA, and say, hey, could you maybe let us know? Are you guys waiting for equipment to happen? Because sometimes that will happen. Equipment breaks. It's going to happen. And sometimes it may take time in order for that equipment to come back in. But then you have to get somebody out there to go out and repair it.
Yep, and it's even worse whenever something breaks in the data gathering and assimilation side, where it's like all of these sites that are still functional can't get their data in, and so we lose like a large section of the country.
Right.
When we've had sometimes when we go on the air and then suddenly all of our temperatures just drop off the map, except save for usually Medicine Lodge. Medicine Lodge usually is still able to get the data in no matter what.
And everybody wants to know, why does Medicine Lodge always tend to be warmer? And I think there's a few different reasons for that.
Geography being probably chief among them.
It's going to be one of the big things.
Gypsum
because
hills.
if you look what happens, you're talking about hills, right? Depending on where you're located and where that air is flowing, if you have air that's flowing down like into a valley at night, if you're located in a valley, your temperatures are typically going to be cooler during the overnights. But then during the day, are you getting more of a downslope feature? If you're getting more of a downslope feature, or basically the winds, think of it this way. Kansas is not flat. Kansas raises anywhere from about...
Lisa, you're telling me the rumors are wrong?
Travel through the Flint Hills. You know that Kansas is not flat. But Kansas raises in elevation anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 feet from the eastern state line to the west. The highest elevation in Kansas being Mount Sunflower in northwest Kansas. Now, the thing is, when you think of Kansas this way, so it's a slope, right? So if you have air that is traveling down that, you can warm up. Now, if you have, like for example, for Wichita, if you have a southwesterly wind, which this summer we struggled to get a southwesterly wind. You look at our temperatures for tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up here and pay attention to what the wind flow is doing. South-southwest, right? Who gets the southwest winds tomorrow? It's western Kansas. Western Kansas is also going to have a little bit of a better chance of seeing more sunshine than the central and eastern parts of the state. So that all plays into who's going to be hottest, who's going to be coolest. But when you get a southwest wind in Wichita, which we struggled this summer for that to happen, that will actually help to warm us up.
Yep, and it just comes down to the simple law of when air goes downward in the atmosphere, it warms. Whenever it goes upward, it cools.
Right.
And that ties, if you ever took a physics or a chemistry class back in college, you might have heard of the ideal gas law. It all ties back into that.
My head's ready to explode right now.
Starting to get a little bit mathematical there, but it's basically, if air goes up, it gets a little cooler. If it goes down, it gets a little warmer. So wind blowing down a slope from the west, like you lose 1,000 feet in elevation, you're going to gain a couple degrees in your temperature. All
right. And Rochelle saying, hi, guys. Love watching you. Don't have any questions right now, but glad to have you as our meteorologist. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That's so kind of you. If you guys have any weather questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Let us know.
Let us nerd out.
Because you know we will. We meteorologists love to do that.
Oh, we've been doing very little of that in the last 20 minutes, Lisa.
That's true.
No nerd stuff happening.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, we're about ready to come up to the kickoff for the game, the Ravens and also the Bills coming up on KSN. You're probably wondering, well, why is Lisa here on a Sunday? And I'm along with Jeff and Julia. Have Maney here helping me out tonight. Next weekend, you're going to have Lucy. But the evening crew is taking over Sunday nights right now for Sunday Night Football. So every single Sunday, 5 p.m., And also right after the game, you can catch the latest news, weather, and sports. We're going to be here, and we're going to be here for you. And it's going to be a busy week in some parts of the state when it comes to storms.
Yep, and it's going to be keeping us busy. Tomorrow, next couple days, we'll have those storms keeping on rolling on through, and even into the late weeks, looking like things are probably going to stay pretty active. We're going to be in what we talk about it usually during the summer months. The ring of fire pattern is going to kind of be overhead. We're going to have these little weak disturbances moving through, winds in the upper atmosphere coming in from the northwest, and that often is a pretty conducive pattern to getting a few of these storm complexes to roll through. And looks like we'll be set up for it, at least one maybe around Wednesday. Another potential for storms, especially western Kansas, looking ahead towards Saturday, next weekend, onward into next week. Doesn't look like we ever fully turn the taps off.
Yep, very true. All right, so 86, 87 degrees, our average high. As you can see here, we're getting back there this week. Monday, one of the coolest days. Then we're back into the 80s, close to 90 degrees on Friday, Saturday, and also Sunday of next week. You're talking about the heat dome, and the heat dome is not nearly as strong as it was over the summer. And the heat dome was never directly overhead with us. I mean, it made a few attempts, but then it would retreat. A few attempts, and it would retreat. And we were constantly in the ring of fire. The ring of fire being that zone where you're most likely to see showers and also thunderstorms. Helped us out with Sheeny. Helped us out. I mean, we're doing good.
Absolutely fantastic. Went from 8 feet below normal to now nearly a foot above normal. So if we get another big heavy rain, they might actually have to open the floodgates a little bit, let some of that water out.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see how much of a change we can make in such a short period of time. And it's good that we're also going to continue to add a few more opportunities for moisture this week. When it comes to the heat dome, it is going to build more into the central parts of the state, Central Plains, also the South Plains later this week, Thursday, Friday, which is the reason why you see our temperatures going up like they are. But then this weekend, it starts to retreat, so it starts to back off again. And that's why the highs are going to start to go down a few degrees. But also this weekend, it's going to put us into another lineup for thunderstorms. When it comes to Wichita's chances for thunderstorms, we have a chance tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. Tuesday morning before the sun rises, looks like that's going to be more Flint Hills. Wednesday, we have a chance. Not as good for Wichita Thursday or Friday. I think the focus is going to be more out to the west because of the positioning of this heat dome. But then this weekend, I think probably Saturday night and Sunday, Wichita's going to have another opportunity.
Yep, and we'll just keep right on rolling, rolling right along with that. And as long as we keep that, like, even though the heat dome is pretty weak right now, I would call it more of a heat molehill or something like that. Just
where the warmth is deeply rooted.
Yeah,
I guess you could say.
Where the I would say not the heat, just the gentle warmth.
The gentle warmth
is deeply rooted. It's getting a little bit weaker this time of the year, but as long as we're in that belt of stronger winds around the center of that upper level high pressure, then and things can happen. If we have moisture in the area with those with stronger winds up high, then that is classic recipe for thunderstorms.
Northwesterly flow. I'm not going to tell you guys what Dave Freeman used to call it because I think the FCC would probably slap my hand on that. These folks know what Dave used to call it because I passed on that term. But we do know that we could be spending some longer nights in the Weather Center because we'll be watching thunderstorms that will be moving from the northwest down to the southeast. Like the thunderstorms that we had the other day, the ones that produced the baseball-sized hail. They erupted over towards Saline County, the Salina area, and then they continue to travel to the south-southeast. And many of you think, well, that is just such a weird weather flow for this to happen. But this is what happens when you have that steering current of the winds aloft going from the northwest down to the southeast, which is northwesterly flow. Rod saying, dating back to the Mike Smith days, KSN has always been my favorite source for weather. Start every morning checking out the Skyview cameras around the state. Rod, thank you so much for sending us that. We appreciate that. And Mike Smith, I still keep in contact with Mike. Maybe one day we'll have him back here on KSN.
That'd be a great big return to form.
It would be absolutely wonderful. Mike Smith, love him to death. He left Wichita about a year ago. He is now living up in the Kansas City metro. And a little bit of information to pass on about Mike. I mean, he retired from weather data, which became AccuWeather a few years back. And even though you can take the meteorologist out of the weather center, you can never take the weather out of the meteorologist. And Mike is still quite active on X or Twitter. So if you want to get into contact with Mike, that's going to be one of the best ways to do that. But he also has his own weather blog that he updates quite frequently. And one thing that Mike has worked really closely on, Mike was knee-high to a prairie dog back during the Ruskin Heights tornado that happened in the late 1950s. And because of some meteorologists that worked for the Weather Bureau at the time, which is now the National Weather Service, if they had not done what they had done and breaking the mold when it came to issuing tornado warnings, a lot more people probably would have died in that tornado. And a few months back, the memorial for the people that had passed away in the Ruskin Heights tornado, it was damaged by somebody who was not paying attention to driving. And they were thinking about totally doing away with the memorial. But Mike Smith stepped in and said, no, please don't do this. I would like to donate to help get this back up. And they are going to rededicate it coming up. I believe it's the 18th of this month. I have to look at the double check for that up in the Kansas City metro area. And Mike has also requested that a special plaque gets added to this to commemorate and to honor the meteorologists that worked with the Weather Bureau that night, that were willing to put their careers on the line in order to make sure that people stayed safe.
The amazing just advancements, the leaps and bounds that we were growing by around that time frame.
In the 1950s, you couldn't say the word tornado, because if you said the word tornado, you went on TV, you went on radio. Those of the meteorologists that worked at the Weather Bureau, if they did that, then basically it could have been career suicide, because if it didn't pan out, they could have been like, oh, well, you were just trying to create panic with the public. And it started in the 1930s that our government did not want us to say the word tornado or say hurricane. The Weather Bureau did not want to be in the business of forecasting tornadoes or forecasting hurricanes, and they thought it would create panic. But then you had meteorologists that were there in the 1950s that changed things. Mm-hmm. And we had to go through some horrible tornado disasters in our state, including Udall in 55. We had Ruskin Heights, which started on the Kansas side in 1957, only to be followed up by the El Dorado tornado in 1958. We had no organized tornado warning systems at that time. But if you go back a few years prior to that, in 1952, President Truman, here we were coming out of World War II. He did not want the atomic bomb to be used on our country. So what did he do? He put in all these air raid sirens across the whole entire country to warn Americans that, hey, there was this threat. So how did we go from air raid sirens to tornado warning devices? It actually happened here in Wichita. And Sergeant Paul Hansen with the Wichita Police Department was working the day after the El Dorado tornado in 1958. Saw a tornado on the east side of Wichita. Could not get a hold of any of his superiors. Could not get a hold of the city manager. So he went right over to that air raid siren, flipped it on, and to this day, that is the first world use of the tornado warning device, and it happened right here in Wichita.
It's an incredible story. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible that event, the first use of a tornado warning siren ever, that's still living memory for some folks. Mm-hmm. It just goes to show you how just within one person's lifetime, we've gone from being completely blindsided by major weather disasters like this to suddenly...
Like the Udall tornado. The coast is clear, guys. And everybody goes to sleep. And that's where, after 10:35 at night, you have this tornado that developed down in Oklahoma, tracked to the north, continued to spawn one tornado after another, hits Udall head on. Everybody thought the coast was clear. And many people lost family members, multiple family members that night, because they were asleep in their beds. Mm-hmm.
And now, current day and age, we are just awash with tons of ways to get warnings.
Right.
And the fatality rates in these major weather disasters has plummeted so much in just one human lifetime.
Yep.
It's incredible to think about how far we've come and still how much farther we have to go.
If you were to take the radar imagery from the 1955 Udall tornado with the 2007 Greensburg tornado, overlay them. Now, it's the same tornado. Mm-hmm. But of course, radar imagery has changed drastically from 55 over toward 2007. But that goes to show you the magnitude of both of these storms, both of these tornadoes, and how you had so many people that died in the Udall tornado, but not as many deaths during the Greensburg tornado. And if you go back to that night, incredible warnings from Dodge City National Weather Service and incredible coverage, which I know Dave Freeman did a fantastic job of going block by block by block and talking to people and saying, this is where this tornado is right now. This is the time that it's going to be in Greensburg. And look what happened earlier this spring when you were out and you were tracking the tornado. We had a tornado emergency for Greensburg in Kiowa County, and then we had a tornado emergency for Plevna. And I'll never forget that when that tornado emergency came out for Greensburg, my heart just sank because of thinking that this is a wedge tornado. We could be looking at something similar to what we saw not that long ago in this state.
Yeah, exactly. That night was harrowing. And I just still am absolutely just, I find myself just thinking back to that night every now and again and thinking we had these gigantic high-end tornadoes happening and nobody got hurt.
Yeah, right. Right.
We got it took a good track. We're very glad that it mainly stayed over rural areas, other than that tornado that sideswiped Plevna on the western side. We didn't have really any major direct hits from these tornadoes when they were at their peak, like we did have in Greensburg back in 2007. So
yeah.
We got very lucky that night, but also what goes to show the warning process works.
It does.
People knowing where these tornadoes are, when they're going to be arriving in your neighborhood, just having those extra few minutes so you can get to shelter, so you can take care of what you need to take care of to protect yourselves. Those few minutes they're completely crucial.
And that's why it's so important to have you in Storm Tracker 3 out watching these storms. I mean, severe weather is kind of your bread and butter. You grew up in the Oklahoma City metro area, and coming from also being a family of first-generation storm spotters. I think some of the first storm spotters that we had here, you could easily say Udall, because they built the Outlook Tower after the 1955 tornado and said, we're going to use this to not only watch planes that are flying overhead, track what time, what kind of plane it was, but we're also going to make sure that we're tracking storms so that way nobody gets blindsided again. But in the 60s and 70s, my grandpa and my great-uncle Doug were some of the first storm spotters through amateur radio here in Wichita, in Sedgwick County. And it's something that my dad continues with. My dad still works with the county, with emergency management, with his RACES organization. And everybody talks about artificial intelligence, AI, right? I still think that even though we have all this technology that's going to be blossoming in front of our eyes, it is never going to take away from being the eyes and the ears of any storm. Like in the 1950s after Udall, 60s and 70s with Grandpa and Great Uncle Doug, 80s with my dad up to the present, and also with you being out there now.
Yep, there's a human touch that I think is really hard to. It's really hard to get a computer to not only be able to tell that there is a tornado here. I mean, sure, you could put a camera out there and AI could maybe spot a tornado with it, but that you're not going to be able to tell, where's this tornado going? What's it doing? Is it strengthening? Is it weakening? Is it going to turn right or left? There's a level of human experience that can't be replicated by some of that technology. It's a great tool to have more ways to see what's happening, but there's always going to be that need for the human touch. And
I've also heard that when it comes to artificial intelligence, if you live, for example, on the southwest side of Wichita, off Tyler Road, this is where the National Weather Service's Doppler radar is located. If you're underneath that dome, you're not going to see anything because it can't look directly above it, right? So what I'm learning is that with artificial intelligence, kind of the next wave is that AI is studying all of these storms and hopes to fill that in above that cone of silence one day, and probably one day soon.
Interesting.
It will be. It will be. Rochelle asked a really good question. Do you feel like you are at a disadvantage not having on the ground storm chasers throughout the state? We actually have storm chasers that will they freelance for us. I have storm chasers that are based in Kansas City because I worked in Kansas City once upon a time. And so I have known Jacob Honeycutt ever since he was 18 years old. So I've known him for a long time and have continued to mentor him and coach him. And also John Moon. Well, John Moon left Kansas City, moved out to Denver. And so sometimes he will come in and he will cover storms in eastern Colorado into western Kansas. I'll have Jacob that will come down from the Kansas City area. But I also have a slew of incredible storm trackers here in the metro. We have Julie and Mark Lampy. We also have Lisa Dimmitt. Lisa Dimmitt has been with us, I think, since I came back to Wichita over 8 years ago as one of our storm tracker. We have Tyler Kurtz. We also have Robert Clayton. And Robert Clayton owns a TIV, a Tornado Intercept vehicle that he is restoring right now.
Hopefully that will be operational by next storm season. Of course, fingers crossed, that might be a bit of a stretch because that was, it was pretty badly deteriorated whenever he got his hands on it. But.
It was an incredible story that Erica Page did a number of years ago during our Severe Weather Preparedness Week. And the show that had these Tornado Intercept vehicles or TIVs, if you're familiar with Reed Timmer, he goes out in a TIV, Tornado Intercept vehicle. Well, after the show was done many years ago, the producer said, if I put this vehicle out here, it's going to be a scavenger hunt. If you find it, I will give you the keys and I will give you the title, and it's yours. So Robert looked at a map on Google and said, that looks like the TIV in a field near, I think it was Liebenthal, Kansas. And so he rolls in, knocks on the door, and says, hey, the TIV is here. By all accounts, TIV is mine. And person goes inside, must make a phone call, comes back out and says, here you go.
Wow.
Yeah. So they never thought that it would run again, but it's something else. He's put a lot of time, love, and attention into it, and also finances into it in order to try to get it to be a vehicle that will be out and about.
Yep, the original TIV. And TIV 2, I've seen it a couple times out on the road this year. So a lot of the vehicles from that original Discovery Storm Chasers series from the late 2000s, yep, they're still out there running around.
Travis, thank you so much. That's a very sweet compliment. You guys are so awesome. And Rochelle says, neat, thank you. Coming from the Oklahoma City area, I didn't realize that you all had that many. I guess I just don't see them like I did there. Yeah, Oklahoma City is a little bit of a different beast when it comes to severe weather coverage.
They have a little bit more resources to work with.
Choppers.
And it's been more historically just built up by them having all of these fairly recent major disasters, like the Moore tornado of 1999, 2013, El Reno, 2011, 2013. There was the major tornado outbreak in 2010, just especially right around that from about 2007 onwards through about 2013, it was just it was an onslaught through Oklahoma, and I imagine that has really helped to solidify, like, hey, we need to be pouring more money into this. We need to make sure that we have all of our bases covered.
Right.
And it's a model for us. We take some inspiration from what the folks are doing down in Oklahoma City at our sister stations like K4. But yeah, they are pretty much top of the game, as good as it gets, and we do the best we can with what we have.
And helicopters, I know, if I think back, it probably would have been the 1980s since we've had helicopters here in Wichita. But also with drone technology, there's still so much to be an advantage and different ways to go into.
There are ways to get the job done. We might not have somebody up in like a storm spotter up in the helicopter, but we could use a drone. We have a drone here with KSN. We need to see about maybe getting an avenue to getting that out in the field too.
And also, when it comes to helicopters are really expensive to have to maintain.
Yes, they are.
Every so often, after so many hours, you have to overhaul things. When I worked in Kansas City at KMBC, the helicopter that we had was an R-44, and the only way that you could overhaul that, and I don't know if things have changed since then because it's been a few years since I worked there, you had to put it on a flatbed and you had to haul it all the way out to California in order to have that done. So you were without a chopper for a while. And I think even in Oklahoma City, they're starting to lose some of their choppers just because it is a cost-cutting type of a move. But like I said, I mean, the choppers are great and everything, but I still love having the eyes and the ears on the storm, from the storm chasers to the storm spotters, and of course, our own storm tracker right here, meteorologist Jack Maney. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, you don't have to have a helicopter to be able to get where you need to go.
Right.
You just have to, maybe you can't move as quickly as you could in a helicopter. It'd be nice if I could chase in a helicopter.
Yeah, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? That'd be fun.
But
I did that
yeah,
once.
Yeah,
I did that once.
we get the job done with
That's
the tools
right.
we have.
That's right. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. We're about ready for kickoff here on KSN. And remember, every single Sunday through the NBC Sunday night football season, we are going to be there, Jeff, Julia, and I, along with Asia, Michael. Come and join us after the game. Stay for the latest news, weather, and sports. We'll continue to keep you advised. And, of course, when it comes to the weather forecast, we're going to go back, look at a little bit more data, continue to track the storms coming in from eastern Colorado. And always remember, we'll be here for you. Everybody, thanks for staying with us this Sunday evening. Have a good one.